Did you know that 70% of lottery winners end up broke within a few years? This is actually a documented psychological condition called sudden wealth syndrome. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly why those who strike it rich often lose everything. Imagine winning millions on Tuesday and filing for bankruptcy by Friday. It happens more often than you'd think. We'll explore the psychological traps that come with sudden money and discover practical safeguards anyone can implement. If you've ever dreamed of hitting the jackpot or coming into unexpected wealth, you absolutely need to watch this before buying your next ticket. The lottery winner's curse. Did you know that winning the lottery is statistically one of the worst things that could happen to you? That's not just me being dramatic. When most people fantasize about hitting the jackpot, they imagine mansions, luxury cars, and never working another day in their lives. But the reality? It's actually a financial and emotional nightmare for most winners. It's like that monkey's paw story. You get exactly what you wished for, but in the most twisted way possible. Studies show that lottery winners are more likely to declare bankruptcy within 3 to 5 years than the average American. You win millions of dollars and somehow end up more broke than before. It's like getting handed the cheat code to life and still finding a way to get a game over. Take Jack Whittaker, for example. In 2002, he won a massive $315 million Powerball jackpot, one of the largest undivided lottery prizes ever at that time. Before winning, Jack was already a successful businessman worth around $17 million. He should have been perfectly positioned to handle this windfall, right? Nope. His story quickly spiraled into what can only be described as a living nightmare. After winning, Jack made a big show of his generosity, donating to churches and setting up a foundation to help poor people in West Virginia. But then things took a dark turn. His car was broken into twice, and people stole over $700,000 in cash that he, for some reason, was carrying around. He started drinking heavily and spending time at strip clubs, where he'd show off by leaving $50,000 tips. His behavior became increasingly erratic. But the money problems were nothing compared to the personal tragedy that followed. Within a few years, Jack's daughter died from a drug overdose. Then his granddaughter, who he'd given a $2,100 weekly allowance to, was found dead as well. Jack openly blamed the lottery win for these tragedies, telling reporters, "I wish I'd torn that ticket up." By 2007, he claimed to be completely broke. The man who had $315 million in his bank account just a few years earlier was now penniless, alcoholic, and had lost the family members he loved most. And he was being sued by multiple casinos for bounce checks. Jack's story represents a pattern seen with other winners. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. won $31 million in 1997. Within 2 years, he'd split with his wife, spent nearly all his money, and ultimately took his own life. Before his death, he told a financial advisor, "Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me." Similarly, William Budd Post won $16.2 million in 1988 and declared, "I wish it never happened. It was totally a nightmare." His brother hired a hitman to try to kill him and his sixth wife to inherit the winnings. By the time he died in 2006, he was living on food stamps and a $450 monthly disability check. These stories showcase how sudden wealth acts like a firework, a brilliant, explosive display that burns intensely before disappearing into darkness, often leaving the winner in worse condition than before. Even Michael Carroll, the UK's self-proclaimed lotto lout, who won £9.7 million, about $15 million, in 2002, blew it all on drugs, parties, and cars within a decade. He ended up working in a cookie factory for £400 a week. This pattern persists regardless of background. It doesn't matter if you were rich or poor before winning, educated or not, financially savvy or clueless. Smart people, dumb people, good people, sketchy people, they all fall into the same traps. Most lottery winners who lose it all do so within 3 to 5 years. It takes most people decades to build wealth, but lottery winners can destroy millions in just a few years, like watching someone burn money in fast forward. Even winners who try to be responsible often end up in financial ruin. Evelyn Adams won the New Jersey lottery twice, 1985 and 1986, for a total of $5.4 million, yet gambled it all away in Atlantic City and ended up living in a trailer. Sharon Tirabassi, who won $10.5 million in 2004, was careful at first, setting up trust funds for her children. But she also bought a big house, fancy cars, and took luxury vacations. By 2013, she was back to riding the bus to her part-time job and living in a rented house. There's a scientific explanation for why approximately 70% of lottery winners end up broke. It's not some mystical curse, but psychology. Sudden wealth triggers a documented psychological condition that rewires your brain and decision-making abilities. When you suddenly have more money than your mind knows how to process, it's like trying to run advanced software on an outdated computer. You crash. Lottery winners don't just lose their money. They often end up worse off than before. They quit jobs they can never get back. They buy houses they can't afford to maintain. They make promises to family and friends they can't sustain. They develop expensive habits that are impossible to support once the money's gone. Then there's the social explosion. Every person you've ever known suddenly shows up with their hand out. Winners report being bombarded with requests for money from family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and strangers. One winner received over 10,000 letters asking for money. Another had to change his phone number 3 times in the first month. The financial pressure combines with psychological stress and social chaos to create the perfect storm. Your identity changes overnight. Your relationships transform. Your worldview shifts. And most people simply aren't equipped to handle it. I'm not saying winning the lottery is always bad. There are winners who manage their windfalls wisely and live happy lives. But they're the exception, not the rule. And they usually follow a very specific set of steps that most winners ignore. Sudden wealth syndrome explained. So those rare lottery winners who don't crash and burn, they've actually avoided a legit psychological condition that's basically your brain having a meltdown when too much money shows up. It's called sudden wealth syndrome, and it's why your fantasy of handling millions perfectly is probably dead wrong. What if your brain is literally incapable of processing instant wealth properly? Imagine this. You wake up one morning as a regular person with bills to pay. Then by afternoon, you're worth $20 million. Your phone won't stop ringing. Everyone suddenly needs just a little help. And you have no idea what to do first. This scenario happens to lottery winners regularly, and their brains simply can't cope. As Sandra Hayes, who split a $224 million Powerball jackpot with coworkers, put it, "I had to endure the greed and the need that people have, trying to get you to release your money to them. That caused a lot of emotional pain." Sudden wealth syndrome is a genuine psychological condition recognized by financial psychologists and therapists. It occurs when someone receives a large sum of money in a short period of time, with lottery winners being the classic examples. Your brain has spent your entire life operating with certain financial limitations. You check price tags, compare costs, decide if something is worth it. Then suddenly, those mental guardrails completely disappear. It's like training your whole life to drive a regular car and then being given a fighter jet. The skills required are entirely different. The symptoms start with identity confusion. When your financial situation dramatically changes, it messes with your sense of self. Who am I now that I'm wealthy? Do I deserve this money? Many lottery winners describe feeling like they're living someone else's life, because they are. They're thrust into a lifestyle they have zero experience navigating. Then comes the guilt, a nagging feeling that you don't deserve this windfall. Financial therapist Olivia Mellon calls this money shame, where winners feel unworthy of their new wealth. One winner described it as feeling like an imposter in my own life. This guilt often leads to self-destructive behavior. Excessive spending or risky investments become ways to subconsciously correct what feels like an unfair advantage. Social isolation hits next. When you suddenly have millions, relationships get weird. You question people's motives. You don't know who to trust. Many winners describe feeling more alone after winning than ever before. Decision paralysis follows. When you have unlimited options, making any choice becomes overwhelming. Should you invest? Buy real estate? Help family? With no framework for making high-stakes financial decisions, many winners freeze up or make impulsive choices just to relieve the pressure. What's happening in your brain resembles an old computer trying to run modern software. Your reward system, the part that releases dopamine when good things happen, gets completely overloaded. Normally, your brain gives you small hits of dopamine for small wins, like finding a $20 bill. But millions suddenly appearing in your account is like pouring water into electrical circuits. The system short circuits. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part, gets overwhelmed by emotional centers. Jack Whitaker, who won $315 million in 2002, exemplifies this phenomenon. Despite being a successful businessman before his win, he later lamented, "I wish I'd torn that ticket up." His rational brain was simply overwhelmed by the emotional impact of sudden wealth. What makes lottery winners particularly vulnerable is the speed of wealth acquisition. People who gradually build wealth have time for their brains to adjust. Their neural pathways adapt to having more resources, and they develop financial skills along the way. Dr. Stephen Goldbart, co-founder of the Money, Meaning, and Choices Institute, explains that the human psyche typically needs time to adapt to dramatic change. When wealth arrives suddenly, there's no time for this adaptation. Surprisingly, many lottery winners experience intense anxiety rather than happiness. One major study found that lottery winners reported roughly the same happiness levels as accident victims who became paraplegic. Our brains interpret any major change as a potential threat, triggering our fight or flight response even when the change seems positive. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, our tendency to return to a stable level of happiness despite major life changes. We think winning millions will permanently boost our happiness, but research shows that within about a year, most winners return to their baseline happiness levels. The good news: sudden wealth syndrome isn't a life sentence. With the right guidance, lottery winners can navigate this psychological minefield. Financial therapists recommend 1. A cooling-off period where winners make no major decisions for 3 to 6 months, giving the brain's emotional centers time to calm down. 2. Creating a decision-making framework with clear values and priorities to restore mental guardrails. 3. Working with a financial therapy team, combining a financial advisor and therapist to process both emotional and practical aspects of new wealth. The most successful lottery winners maintain their pre-lottery lifestyles initially, providing continuity for the brain and preventing disorienting identity loss. Small, gradual upgrades rather than complete life overhauls give the mind time to adjust to new circumstances and avoid the destructive pitfalls of sudden wealth syndrome. The social explosion. Just when you think you've got the psychological side under control, your social circle becomes the next casualty of your windfall. Remember those friends who ghosted you after high school? Suddenly they're all sliding into your DMs with suspiciously perfect timing. It's not just your imagination. Your social landscape literally transforms overnight when you win the lottery. Imagine this. You've won millions, and within hours your phone explodes with 10,000 notifications. Messages flood in from people whose names you barely recognize, each with a story, a need, or a brilliant investment opportunity. Your social world transforms into a pressure cooker, heat and tension building as every relationship demands immediate renegotiation. The average lottery winner gets contacted by over 15 people they haven't spoken to in years within the first week alone, climbing to over 30 long-lost connections by month 3. What makes this social explosion so challenging is the emotional whiplash. One day you're living your normal life, and the next, you're faced with heart-wrenching stories from distant relatives about medical bills or friends who need a little help starting their dream business. You want to help people you care about, that's natural, but suddenly everyone seems to care about you a whole lot more than they did last week. According to financial psychologists, lottery winners experience social identity disruption. All your relationships shift into new territory simultaneously. Your parents might start deferring to you on financial decisions. Friends expect you to pick up every tab. Your siblings might suddenly show intense interest in your financial planning. Even your regular barista might start treating you differently if word gets out. These relationships used to have clear dynamics that now feel completely rewritten. The psychological weight of these shifting relationships creates what therapists call new money boundary confusion. When your financial situation changes drastically, the unspoken social contracts you've developed throughout your life suddenly don't apply anymore. Should you loan money to your cousin for that guaranteed successful business idea? Pay off your parents' mortgage? Buy your best friend a car? There's no rule book for this, and most lottery winners make these consequential decisions while emotionally overwhelmed. This boundary confusion gets particularly complicated with family. One winner described it as feeling like an ATM with a family history. The statistics confirm this. Family members account for approximately 65% of all financial requests received by lottery winners. These aren't small asks. The average request from immediate family members tends to be around $50,000, while extended family typically asks for loans of $15,000 to $25,000 that rarely get repaid. Turning down these requests brings immense guilt. Many lottery winners report that saying no feels like betraying their roots or forgetting where they came from. This guilt often leads to poor financial decisions made purely to avoid emotional discomfort. One winner described it as buying peace by saying yes to requests they knew were unreasonable. Sudden wealth makes it nearly impossible to distinguish genuine relationships from opportunistic ones. Your brain can't tell who's there for you versus who's there for your money because all the usual relationship building steps get skipped. That girl you went on 2 dates with shouldn't be talking about your future together after 3 weeks. But is it a genuine connection or your bank account? That investment opportunity your old roommate presented. Is it legitimate interest in your financial well-being or an attempt to cash in? Research shows that approximately 40% of winners report being approached with investment opportunities within the first month. These often come from acquaintances who suddenly position themselves as financial advisors or business partners, giving them built-in credibility that makes their motives harder to question. The pressure intensifies with close friends and immediate family. Studies show that 90% of lottery winners provide financial assistance to family members within 6 months, with the average amount totaling over $100,000. Tellingly, 70% later regret at least some of these financial gifts. Not because they didn't want to help, but because the relationships deteriorated anyway. This deterioration happens because money fundamentally changes relationship dynamics. When you give someone substantial help, it creates an imbalance. The recipient may feel indebted, resentful, or entitled to more. You might feel used or uncomfortable as a benefactor. One winner explained, "When I was broke, my brother and I were equals. Now he resents me when I give him money and resents me when I don't." Friendships suffer particularly hard hits. A study found that 80% of winners lost at least one close friendship within a year. Sometimes friends expected support and became bitter when boundaries were set. Other times, winners grew suspicious of friends' motives, and sometimes the lifestyle gap became too wide to bridge comfortably. What's painfully ironic about this social transformation is that it happens when lottery winners need their support systems most. The adjustment to sudden wealth is disorienting, and having your social network transform removes the very stability that could help you navigate the transition. One winner described it as the ground shifting under my feet, while the people who could help me keep my balance were either pushing me or asking me to carry them. The most successful lottery winners develop what wealth psychologists call compassionate boundaries, frameworks for determining how, when, and to whom they'll provide assistance. These aren't cold rules, but thoughtful systems that protect both assets and relationships. Some create foundations or structured giving plans. Others set up education funds rather than giving cash directly. Many work with financial therapists to develop scripts for handling requests in ways that preserve dignity for everyone involved. As this social pressure cooker releases its steam, winners must carefully navigate the new terrain of relationship management, arguably the most challenging aspect of their sudden transition to wealth: financial decision paralysis. Even if you master those compassionate boundaries we just talked about, there's a bizarre mental glitch that happens when your bank account suddenly has more zeros than your phone number. The freedom that should feel liberating actually becomes the trap door through which millions disappear. It's like your brain's financial GPS system completely shorts out. Here's what happens. When you suddenly have access to virtually unlimited funds, your brain loses its ability to make normal money decisions. Think about it. Most of us live with financial guardrails our entire lives. We check prices, compare options, and feel that little twinge of pain when we spend. Those constraints actually help you make rational choices. When lottery winners get that massive check, those guardrails vanish overnight. Financial psychologists call this value relativity disruption. Basically, your brain can't tell the difference between expensive and really expensive anymore. One lottery winner from Michigan described it perfectly. "When I first won, I'd look at something that cost $1,000 and think, that's nothing compared to what I have. But that thinking quickly turned into looking at things that cost $100,000 the same way, and then $500,000, until nothing felt expensive anymore. This isn't mere recklessness. Your brain literally changes how it processes financial decisions. Studies using functional MRI scans show that the brain's pain centers, which normally activate when spending money, barely register activity in people who've experienced sudden wealth. Think of it as neurological Novocaine for your wallet. This value disruption leads to what financial therapists call purchase acceleration, buying increasingly expensive items at a faster rate. The spending curve becomes exponential. Consider the lottery winner who started with a $60,000 pickup truck, reasonable for a multimillionaire, but within 3 months had purchased 11 vehicles totaling over $1.4 million. Another bought 9 vacation properties in a single year, most sitting empty while still requiring taxes, maintenance, and management. The problem was losing the ability to recognize when something wasn't worth spending on. Sudden wealth creates extreme decision fatigue. When everything is technically affordable, the number of choices you face multiplies dramatically. A wealth psychology researcher explained, "The brain has a finite amount of decision-making energy each day. When every financial choice becomes available simultaneously, you deplete that energy rapidly, leading to increasingly poor choices. By day's end, lottery winners often make financial decisions with the mental equivalent of running on fumes. The pressure intensifies when others start making requests. When your brother-in-law wants funding for his restaurant idea, you're navigating a relationship minefield while your brain already struggles with basic money calculations." One winner described it as feeling like I was taking a calculus test while someone kept changing the questions. Financial advisors also identify the wealth time warp phenomenon. Most people understand that money is finite. We have a sense of how long our savings will last. But lottery winners consistently misjudge their money's longevity. A financial advisor who specializes in sudden wealth clients shared, "Almost every lottery winner I've worked with has overestimated what their winnings could sustain by at least double. They think $10 million will last forever, when at their spending rate, it might not last 5 years. This distorted perception explains truly baffling financial decisions. One winner built a $2 million backyard water park without considering the $200,000 annual maintenance. Another purchased a private island without calculating transportation, infrastructure, and staffing costs. They genuinely couldn't process the long-term financial implications. Perhaps most dangerous is what happens to risk assessment. When financial risk has been a limiting factor your entire life and suddenly disappears, your ability to evaluate other risks becomes compromised. Winners agree to business ventures they don't understand, invest in unfamiliar markets, or lend money without proper documentation. A wealth psychologist who's worked with over 50 lottery winners explained, "They lose the ability to recognize what a bad investment even looks like. Their normal risk detection systems stop functioning properly. This explains why many winners fall prey to suspicious investment schemes they would have immediately recognized as scams before their windfall. Many lottery winners recognize they're making poor decisions, but feel powerless to stop. One winner who lost nearly half his winnings in 2 years said, "It was like watching myself from outside my body, making choices I knew were terrible, but I couldn't seem to regain control." This powerlessness stems from what psychologists call temporal discounting on hyperdrive. The immediate pleasure of spending outweighs the future benefits of saving at an extreme level. Your brain receives constant hits of dopamine from spending, creating a literal addiction to purchasing. The most successful lottery winners artificially recreate constraints. Some work with financial advisors to create spending allowances, limiting access to their full wealth. Others establish strict waiting periods for any purchase over a certain amount. These self-imposed guardrails help their brains return to more normal decision-making patterns. One winner who preserved most of their wealth explained, "I pretend I only won 1/10 of what I actually did. I put the rest in accounts I can't easily access and live as if it doesn't exist." This mental accounting trick maintains perspective on value and prevents the escalating spending that depletes fortunes. Financial therapists also recommend spending rehearsals, mentally walking through a purchase and its consequences before making it. This activates the brain's planning centers and counteracts impulsive decisions. Some winners create personal boards of advisors, the public target. Those financial safeguards we just talked about are super important, but there's another massive threat that no budget spreadsheet can protect you from. The moment your lottery win becomes public knowledge, You basically transform from a regular person into a walking target. I'm not being dramatic here. Your face plastered across the news with that giant check is basically an advertisement announcing, "I have millions and don't know what I'm doing with it yet." When your identity becomes public, you'll face coordinated theft attempts, identity theft, sophisticated scams, exploitation from acquaintances, frivolous lawsuits, and even physical safety threats. About 1 in 3 lottery winners experience at least one serious theft attempt within their first year. More alarmingly, lottery winners are nearly 18 times more likely to have their identities stolen than the average person, because their personal information is suddenly everywhere. I couldn't even go grocery shopping without someone approaching me with an amazing opportunity or a sob story. Shared one winner who lost over $300,000 to scams in just 4 months. The worst part wasn't the constant requests for money. It was losing my sense of who I could trust. Even my mailman started pitching me business ideas. What makes this especially dangerous is that these aren't random opportunists. The schemes targeting lottery winners are sophisticated operations run by people who specialize in separating the newly wealthy from their money. They research you extensively, learning about your background, family connections, and interests. Then they craft personalized approaches designed to exploit your specific vulnerabilities. If you've ever mentioned an interest in real estate on social media, suddenly you'll be approached by exclusive investment groups with property opportunities requiring immediate cash deposits. If you've talked about supporting education, you'll find yourself solicited by fake charities with heart-wrenching stories about children needing scholarships. The investment scams are particularly effective because they're often partially legitimate. A professional con artist might present you with an actual business opportunity, maybe a restaurant or retail store, but with grossly inflated projections and hidden costs. By the time you realize the business will never be profitable, they've collected their fees and moved on. One financial advisor who specializes in working with windfall recipients shared a story about a client who lost over $2 million in just 6 months. The first scam seemed legitimate and even returned a small profit as a trust-building measure, creating what psychologists call the lure effect, making the winner more susceptible to larger scams down the road. Sometimes the biggest threats come from within your social circle. One winner described how a distant cousin approached them with a guaranteed successful business plan for a specialty food truck. After investing $300,000, they discovered the cousin had no business experience and had already spent most of the money on personal expenses. Then there's the lawsuit phenomenon. Public lottery winners experience litigation magnetism, attracting legal claims from every direction. A fender bender from 3 years ago suddenly becomes a serious injury. A casual conversation about a business idea becomes a claim that you stole intellectual property. One lottery winner spent over $800,000 defending against various frivolous lawsuits in the first 2 years after their win. Digital threats are equally concerning. Winners report dramatic increases in sophisticated phishing attempts, targeted malware, and social engineering attacks. Cybercriminals create convincing emails that appear to come from your bank or financial advisor, designed to harvest your financial information. Your physical safety can be at risk too. Several lottery winners have experienced home invasions, with one case involving a winner who was followed home from the bank and robbed at gunpoint. Another had to relocate 3 times after stalkers repeatedly discovered their address. I don't share these stories to terrify you, but to emphasize that privacy is about fundamental safety. You're simultaneously experiencing the psychological disorientation of sudden wealth while becoming highly visible to predators who specialize in exploiting exactly that disorientation. Some states now allow lottery winners to remain anonymous, but many still require public disclosure, creating a bizarre situation where state governments force winners into high-risk situations without providing protection. Key privacy strategies that successful lottery winners implement include setting up trusts or legal entities to claim the prize anonymously, changing phone numbers and securing or deactivating social media accounts, temporarily relocating during the initial publicity, hiring security consultants to assess physical safety vulnerabilities, using professional intermediaries for all financial transactions, creating communication protocols for family and friends. The winners who fare best treat privacy as their top priority from day one. Before making any financial decisions, before celebrating, even before claiming the prize, they focus on creating a privacy infrastructure that shields them from attention. The same principles can be applied by anyone experiencing a financial windfall, whether it's an inheritance, legal settlement, or successful business exit. The scale might be different, but the foundational risks remain the same. The wisest lottery winners understand that their most valuable asset isn't the money itself. It's their ability to make clear decisions about that money without constant external pressure and threats. And that ability is directly tied to how well they can maintain their privacy. The critical first steps. While privacy protects you from external threats, there's an invisible danger that comes from within, your own decision-making in those first heart-pounding days after the win. Did you know that lottery winners who take one specific action within the first 72 hours are statistically 70% more likely to maintain their wealth long-term? That action might surprise you with its simplicity, doing almost nothing. Let me explain. Those initial hours after seeing your matching numbers create what financial psychologists call a financial emergency state. Your brain literally floods with adrenaline and dopamine, creating a chemical cocktail that's practically designed to make you do stupid things with money. Your excitement hijacks the rational decision-making parts of your brain. It's basically financial intoxication. The moment you realize you've won, your first instinct might be to celebrate, tell everyone you know, or start making plans for that mansion you've always wanted. But here's the brutal truth. Every single one of those impulses could set you on the path to losing everything. Consider Timothy Peters, name changed, who won $12 million in a state lottery. Within 48 hours, he made promises to numerous people, committed to buying properties, and announced his win on social media. 6 months later, he faced multiple lawsuits, fractured family relationships, and had spent millions without proper financial planning. His hasty decisions in those first days proved catastrophic. So what should you do in those critical first 72 hours? Here's your step-by-step guide. Step 1. Secure your ticket. Sign the back immediately. This legally establishes you as the rightful owner. Write your name small enough to leave room for a trust or legal entity, name you might establish later. Store the ticket somewhere absolutely secure like a safe deposit box. Step 2. Maintain strict confidentiality. Research shows each additional person you tell about your win in the first week increases security issues by about 12%. Limit your circle to perhaps your spouse or one trusted family member. Can you imagine the consequences of everyone knowing about your newfound wealth? The pressure, the requests, the potential danger, all preventable with discretion. Step 3. Assemble your financial dream team. You need specialists who have experience with sudden wealth. A financial advisor specialized in windfall situations, an attorney experienced in estate planning and asset protection, a tax professional who understands lottery winnings implications, and possibly a therapist who specializes in financial transitions. When selecting these professionals, ask about their experience with clients who've received sudden wealth. How many lottery winners have they worked with? What's their success rate? What specific strategies do they use? The right advisors will have concrete answers and case studies. Step 4. Create legal structures before claiming. In most states, you have between 90 days and 1 year to claim your winnings. Use this time to establish a blind trust or limited liability company that can claim the prize on your behalf, creating a privacy layer between you and public knowledge of your win. Wealth management experts report that winners who set up proper legal structures before claiming their prize were almost 3 times more likely to preserve their wealth long-term compared to those who claimed first and planned later. Step 5. Implement a decision moratorium. After securing the ticket and making initial protective arrangements, do nothing at all with your wealth for 3 to 6 months. This cooling-off period is crucial. Don't quit your job. Don't buy a house. Don't invest in your cousin's startup. Don't even decide charitable donations yet. There's solid science behind this approach. Financial psychologists call it psychological recalibration. Your brain needs time to adjust to your new financial reality. This adaptation period allows your emotional response to subside so your rational brain can reassert control over financial decisions. During this waiting period, focus on learning and planning. Work with your financial team to create a comprehensive wealth management strategy. Learn about investment vehicles and tax implications. Develop a giving strategy if philanthropy is important to you. Create a detailed budget reflecting your values and long-term goals. Many advisors recommend practice spending. Mental exercises where you imagine different spending scenarios and consider their long-term implications. This rewires your brain to make more thoughtful financial decisions when you start using your money. Successful lottery winners often create a decision framework during this period, personalized rules for making financial choices. This might include waiting periods for major purchases, requiring team consultation for investments, or establishing spending and giving budgets. The power of this waiting period is that it gives you time to envision multiple futures. Rather than reacting impulsively, you can thoughtfully design the life you actually want. Research shows lottery winners who continued working, at least part-time, reported higher life satisfaction than those who immediately retired. This disciplined approach might not sound as exciting as buying a Lamborghini the day after your win, but financial advisors call these first 72 hours destiny hours for good reason. They set the trajectory for everything that follows. The decisions you make in this critical window establish patterns that can either preserve your wealth for generations or deplete it within years. The stealth wealth approach. Those initial decisions shape your wealth's future. But here's the really interesting part about true wealth that most people miss. That person sitting next to you at the coffee shop in their plain t-shirt, worn jeans, and 5-year-old Toyota, they might be worth millions, and that's completely by design. While lottery winners are often rushing to flash their cash with mansions and sports cars, the truly wealthy are doing something radically different. They're hiding their money in plain sight. Welcome to the world of stealth wealth, a deliberate lifestyle strategy that wealthy people use to preserve their fortunes and protect their happiness. Think of it as financial camouflage. The concept is straightforward. You have money, but you don't show it. You live below your means, avoid flashy purchases, and blend in with everyone else. Warren Buffett, despite his $100+ billion fortune, still lives in the same modest Omaha house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. "I buy everything I want," he once remarked, "but it just so happens that what I want is ordinary." This mindset reveals the core psychology behind stealth wealth. When your identity becomes intertwined with visible displays of wealth, you enter a never-ending competition that actually diminishes happiness rather than enhancing it. Thomas Stanley, who studied millionaires for decades, discovered that most don't live in upscale neighborhoods, wear designer clothes, or drive luxury cars. The average millionaire drives a car at least 3 years old, often much older. Mark Zuckerberg, worth billions, famously wears the same gray t-shirt nearly every day, explaining that eliminating trivial decisions about clothing preserves mental energy for important matters. The fundamental question becomes, how do you enjoy your money's benefits without broadcasting it? Research from Stanley and Sarah Stanley Falla found that millionaires derive greater satisfaction from financial security and independence than from status symbols. As one self-made millionaire put it, "I'm not frugal because I need to be. I'm frugal because it gives me peace of mind." This shift, from seeing money as an impression maker to viewing it as a freedom tool, separates those who maintain wealth from those who lose it. Like invisible armor, stealth wealth creates a protective buffer between financial reality and external perceptions. Visible wealth creates vulnerability, attracting not just potential scammers but also social pressure, expectations, and judgment. By appearing ordinary, the wealthy gain extraordinary freedom to make decisions based on personal values rather than external influences. The patterns of consumption among the truly rich often surprise people. AutoTrader found that 61% of people earning over $250,000 annually avoid luxury car brands entirely, preferring practical vehicles like Honda, Toyota, and Ford. One wealth manager observed, "My wealthiest clients, with $50+ million net worth, drive Subarus and Toyotas. Those struggling to maintain wealth drive Mercedes and BMWs." This principle extends beyond transportation. While new money rushes toward mansion-filled enclaves, many self-made millionaires choose middle-class neighborhoods where they're surrounded by teachers, firefighters, and small business owners. According to one real estate consultant, about 40% of my clients worth over $10 million choose homes valued at less than 10% of their net worth, properties that give absolutely no indication of their financial status. Stealth wealth represents a comprehensive lifestyle philosophy centered on what financial advisors call inconspicuous consumption, prioritizing experiences, health, education, and retirement over visible status symbols. The wealthy might fly business class but wear an inexpensive watch, own a beautiful home but furnish it modestly, or send children to excellent schools while driving them there in a family sedan. Sam Walton exemplified this approach. Despite amassing what would be over $100 billion in today's dollars as Walmart's founder, he drove a 1979 Ford F-150 pickup. When questioned about his modest vehicle choice, he reportedly answered, "What am I supposed to haul my dogs around in? A Rolls-Royce." This emphasis on utility over display threads through the behaviors of the stealthily wealthy. Implementing stealth wealth requires specific disciplines. First, wealthy individuals separate their identity from their assets, finding meaning in relationships, work, and contributions rather than possessions. Second, they establish clear boundaries around financial discussions, avoiding money talk in social settings. Third, they practice selective luxury, investing in what truly matters while remaining frugal elsewhere. One financial advisor working with $5 to $50 million clients shared this insight. "My most financially secure clients follow what I call the 110 rule. They live as if they have about 1/10 of their actual net worth. This preserves capital and increases happiness by freeing them from the social pressures of visible wealth." The psychological benefits extend beyond financial protection. When wealth isn't obvious, people treat you normally. Friendships develop based on genuine connection rather than financial influence. You avoid the wealth bubble that isolates you from normal life experiences. In essence, stealth wealth purchases something more valuable than luxury. It buys normalcy. As former wealth manager Ramit Sethi describes, "The wealthiest people I know aren't the ones with the nicest watches or cars. They're the ones who can go on vacation whenever they want, help family members in need, and quit jobs they don't like without financial stress." This freedom, making choices based on personal fulfillment rather than financial necessity, is the true luxury that stealth wealth protects. The ultimate irony: by appearing less wealthy, you actually become more wealthy, saving more, spending intentionally, avoiding lifestyle inflation, and protecting yourself from the complications that visible wealth creates. It's counterintuitive in our image-obsessed culture, but it's the approach wealthy people have used for generations. Digital footprint management. Your smartphone might just be the biggest wealth leak you never considered. Think about it. That digital device you're probably holding right now contains more information about your financial status, daily habits, and personal details than most people realize. And in our hyper-connected world, this creates an entirely new security challenge that even the most privacy-conscious wealthy individuals struggle to manage effectively. When you post that innocent vacation photo from your beachfront villa, a whole digital ecosystem captures, processes, and sometimes exploits that information. Your photos contain metadata, hidden data revealing exactly when and where that picture was taken, what device you used, and sometimes even your route. For someone with the right tools, that sunset beach photo announces your empty house and suggests the value of your possessions. This reflects the reality of modern digital life. Specialized software now scans social media specifically for wealth indicators. Security experts have identified programs that criminal organizations use to build comprehensive profiles of potential targets based solely on public social media presence. These programs identify high-value items in photo backgrounds, analyze vacation frequency, detect daily routine patterns, and compile accurate assessments of net worth and security vulnerabilities. Digital breadcrumbs accumulate over time, creating danger. A single post about your new watch might seem innocuous, but combined with hundreds of other posts spanning years, it reveals your spending habits, wealth level, and lifestyle patterns. One security consultant working with high-net-worth clients notes, "Most people would be shocked to discover how accurately we can estimate someone's financial status and daily routine within just 30 minutes of reviewing their public social media profiles." The risks intensify with our interconnected digital lives. LinkedIn reveals career progression and likely income. Facebook check-ins map regular locations. Instagram highlights possessions and travel. Fitness apps potentially show neighborhood layouts and daily routines. Together, these platforms form a comprehensive blueprint of your life, undermining traditional physical privacy measures. Consider Sarah, a successful tech executive who implemented rigorous digital privacy practices after a concerning incident. When her home was burglarized, investigators discovered the thieves had studied her social media for months, tracking her travel schedule and identifying valuable items. She now maintains separate personal and professional profiles, posts vacation photos only after returning home, and regularly audits her privacy settings. Since implementing these changes, she reports a dramatic decrease in unsolicited financial approaches and has experienced no further security concerns. Your digital vulnerability extends beyond your own posts. The charity gala group photo where tickets cost $5,000, friends tagging you at exclusive restaurants, family sharing pictures from inside your home. Each third-party exposure adds another piece to your wealth profile without your direct control. This digital vulnerability completely undermines traditional stealth wealth approaches. You might drive a modest car and live in a reasonable home, but if your digital footprint reveals designer clothes, luxury vacations, and high-end restaurant visits, your privacy strategy contains a massive blind spot. One privacy expert notes, "I've had clients who were meticulous about physical security while broadcasting their entire lives online. It's like installing a state-of-the-art security system, but leaving your front door wide open." Protecting yourself requires understanding how your digital presence exposes your financial status. First, audit your existing digital footprint across all platforms. Many people discover shocking amounts of personal information publicly available about them online. Use privacy tools to examine what search engines have collected about you. You'll likely find far more extensive information than imagined. Learn to recognize subtle wealth signals you unconsciously broadcast. Property details and photo backgrounds, visible brand names, location tags at exclusive venues, vacation countdowns announcing empty homes, and comments about purchases or investments. Each seemingly innocent habit contributes to a comprehensive wealth profile that increases targeting vulnerability. Privacy-conscious individuals often create deliberate information noise, strategic omissions, and timing adjustments that disrupt pattern establishment. This includes posting about trips only after returning home and being selective about which life aspects appear online. Platform-specific vulnerabilities require targeted management. Instagram's geolocation features can reveal your exact home location. Facebook's Memories feature exposes patterns in annual travel or spending. LinkedIn's promotion announcements broadcast income changes to your network. Each requires specific privacy approaches. Controlling content visibility delivers significant protection. Default public settings on many platforms mean anyone seeking wealthy targets can view your information. Using friend lists, limited sharing settings, and regularly auditing profile access reduces digital vulnerability. Remember that distant acquaintances might still have full access to current posts unless you've actively managed these connections. Unexpected wealth data leakage often comes from services beyond social media. Food delivery apps reveal your address and preferences. Rideshare services track common destinations. Fitness trackers map regular routes and home location. Online shopping profiles contain purchase history and financial information. Serious privacy seekers should use different email addresses and usernames for different services to prevent easy account cross-referencing. Privacy-focused search engines and virtual private networks provide additional protection layers. The effectiveness of digital privacy strategies proves remarkable once implemented. Wealth management advisors report that clients who properly manage their digital footprints experience up to 80% fewer unsolicited money requests, suspicious opportunities, social media contacts compared to those innocent vacation online photos you've been posting. They're basically saying, "Rob me, I'm not home," to anyone with criminal intentions. This hidden consequence of sharing our perfect moments online goes way beyond making friends jealous. While that 80% reduction in unwanted solicitations through digital privacy management is impressive, many wealthy individuals completely overlook how their everyday posting habits broadcast their financial status more effectively than a billboard ever could. Your social media activity creates a digital treasure map leading directly to your valuables and vulnerabilities. When you share that sunset pic from your beach getaway, friends see a beautiful vacation moment. But someone targeting wealthy individuals sees confirmation that your house sits empty. Your previous posts likely revealed exactly what valuables await inside that unattended home. Security experts have identified specific posting patterns that reveal wealth to those paying attention. Vacation countdown posts are particularly problematic. 5 days until Bali, followed by daily updates and exotic location tags announces exactly when your home will be vacant. Many people create predictable patterns by posting about annual trips to the same locations, making it easy for someone to anticipate when you'll be away next year. Luxury purchase posts serve as another significant wealth indicator. Unboxing videos of tech gadgets or designer items effectively create an inventory list of valuable possessions in your home. Social media has transformed keeping up with the Joneses into a global competition, creating pressure to showcase lifestyle achievements. These documented purchases become a catalog of potential targets. Location tagging establishes a vulnerability that most people overlook. Regular check-ins at restaurants, gyms, or coffee shops create a predictable pattern of your movements. One privacy consultant conducted a revealing experiment. We were able to predict with 87% accuracy where a client would be on any given day just by analyzing 3 months of their public location tags. This predictability allows criminals to determine when homes will be empty or when to target individuals. Home renovation and decoration posts create particular exposures. Tours of your remodeled home reveal entry points, security system details, and valuable items. Even background details and photos, windows, door types, yard layouts, provide critical information for planning a break-in. Security experts report clients are frequently shocked when shown how much of their home's security vulnerabilities they've shared through casual posts. The sophisticated tracking methods compound these risks. Security consultants confirm that specialized software exists specifically to scan social media for wealth indicators and create comprehensive profiles of potential targets. These programs automatically flag accounts that frequently post about luxury brands, high-end restaurants, expensive vacations, or new purchases, essentially creating a targeting list for criminals. Family posts introduce additional vulnerabilities. Sharing children's school information, activities, or family routines provides crucial details that enable stalking and targeted approaches. Several high-net-worth families have experienced concerning incidents after revealing their children's schedules through activity posts. The challenge stems from our natural desire to share life's highlights. Social media platforms are designed to encourage this sharing, built on showcasing your best moments. The algorithms reward engagement, which typically comes from posts displaying success and achievement, creating a situation where the platform itself pushes behaviors that increase vulnerability. Vacation posts can attract sophisticated scams. When criminals know you're traveling, they craft convincing emergency scenarios targeting friends and family. A common approach involves contacting relatives claiming you're in trouble abroad and need money immediately. These scams become more convincing when criminals reference specific details about your location shared online. Real-time posting essentially broadcasts your current location to anyone watching. Many security professionals advise wealthy clients to delay posting until after returning home from trips. Even then, they recommend being vague about dates and locations to avoid establishing exploitable patterns. Friend networks represent another vulnerability. Most social media users accept connection requests from acquaintances, creating networks where information travels beyond intended audiences. Each additional connection increases the risk that personal information reaches someone with harmful intentions, especially concerning since many criminals initiate contact through mutual connections to establish credibility. The solution isn't abandoning social media entirely. Security experts recommend selective sharing that maintains an online presence without broadcasting wealth signals. This means being intentional about what details you share, when you share them, and who can see them. Rather than posting vacations in real time, wait until you're home to share highlights. Instead of sharing specific travel dates, post generally about the experience. Be mindful of photo backgrounds, luxury items, home layouts, or security features. Consider creating separate, private accounts for close friends and family where you can share more freely. Review privacy settings regularly. Platforms frequently change these options, and many users discover how public their private accounts actually are. Use friend lists and audience targeting to ensure appropriate people see certain content. Be especially cautious about sharing information regarding your home, travel plans, and high-value purchases. Some wealthy individuals practice strategic misdirection, occasionally posting content that subtly contradicts their actual financial status or current location. This creates noise in their digital footprint, making it harder for someone to build an accurate profile for targeting purposes. Relationship protection strategies. Strategic misdirection might protect your valuables, but what about protecting the people you actually value? When your financial status changes dramatically, the most painful loss often isn't your stuff, it's your relationships. Those meaningful connections you've built over years can transform overnight, sometimes beyond recognition. This relationship erosion happens so gradually you barely notice until one day you realize the people around you are relating to your bank account, not to you. Money acts like a relationship magnifying glass, amplifying what was already there. That friend who always forgot their wallet becomes the one asking for a business loan. That slightly controlling parent suddenly offers to manage your newfound wealth. Money reveals people's true characters rather than changing them. Psychologists studying wealthy families identify this as financial boundary disruption. When money creates an immediate power imbalance in previously equal relationships, both parties feel uncomfortable. You feel awkward about having more, while your friends feel awkward about having less. Neither knows how to address it, creating silence that breeds distance. Take Marcus, a lottery winner from Oregon, who described losing his 3 closest friendships within a year of his win. They started with small loans, then bigger ones. When I hesitated, they'd remind me of times they helped me before I had money. Eventually, I realized they saw me as an ATM, not a friend. That hurt more than anything. Communication becomes the first casualty when wealth enters the picture. Financial therapist Amanda Clayman calls this the money silence spiral. Conversations become artificial as both parties avoid financial topics, leaving you feeling increasingly isolated. Preserving authentic relationships amid wealth requires specific strategies. 1. Intentional transparency. Be upfront about what your money means for relationships. Address expectations directly. I value our friendship and don't want money to change that. I'm setting up structures for handling financial requests that help me make clear decisions. 2. Establish money discussion windows. Create specific times when financial matters can be discussed, making other gatherings explicitly finance-free zones. This provides breathing room where relationships exist without money overshadowing every interaction. 3. Use I statements. Frame boundaries in terms of your comfort rather than judging others. I've decided to work with financial advisors who help me evaluate all financial requests, which takes the emotional pressure off our relationship. 4. Pause and process method. When someone makes a financial request, don't answer immediately. Have a prepared response. I appreciate you thinking of me. I have a process for considering financial requests that takes about 2 weeks. Let me get the details and get back to you. 5. Pre-money memory test. Before responding to requests, ask yourself, how did this person treat me before the money? What specific memories demonstrate their character? This cuts through the emotional fog surrounding wealth-affected relationships. Some relationships won't survive your wealth transition. Financial psychologists call this relationship evolution, the natural process where connections adapt or dissolve in response to major life changes. The healthiest approach allows connections to evolve while maintaining boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. For relationships worth preserving, consider contribution with dignity. Instead of writing checks that create dependency, find ways to contribute meaningfully while preserving the recipient's autonomy. Creating a family education fund with clear guidelines for all family members removes the feeling of personal charity. Structured giving plans with transparent criteria. Principled giving. Establish how, when, and why you'll provide support. This might include matching funds for education, emergency assistance, or documented business investments. Consistency prevents favoritism accusations and arbitrary decision-making. You can test relationship authenticity through delayed response assessment. Not immediately responding to requests reveals how people react. Those with genuine intentions typically respect your process, while opportunists become demanding when faced with delays. Many successful wealth transitions involve the separate entity approach. Creating a foundation managed by third parties removes you as the direct decision-maker. Friends submit applications to the foundation rather than asking personally, creating emotional distance that preserves relationships. Perhaps most powerful is leading with values, not wealth. When money becomes central to your identity, relationships inevitably revolve around it. But maintaining core values and interests creates connection points unrelated to money. These non-financial dimensions become relationship anchors during turbulent wealth transitions. Protecting relationships during wealth transitions requires the same thoughtful planning applied to financial assets. Emotional bonds, like financial resources, require careful stewardship to thrive. By establishing clear boundaries while remaining generous in spirit, you preserve not just your wealth, but your authentic connections, maintaining your integrity despite the challenges wealth brings. Throughout this video, we've seen how wealth without privacy can become a nightmare instead of a dream. But here's the truth. True wealth isn't measured by your bank balance. It's about the freedom, security, and peace of mind that comes from managing your money wisely. The millionaire next door doesn't look like a millionaire for good reason. Managing your finances discreetly preserves both your wealth and happiness. Think of your wealth as a garden. It grows best when protected from harsh elements. By embracing these stealth wealth principles, you safeguard not just your money, but your future possibilities. Will you choose display or discretion?